Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting. Welcome to councillors, to staff. Also a special acknowledgement to Nicola and Terry from the Dannevirke Community Board who are in attendance. Councillor Kishan, would you mind opening us up with a karakia, please?
Kia ora tātou, e te atua manakitia mātou e tēnei wā, hobai tuaru habe tō wairua bahaki, kia tutuki i ngā kaupapa kei mua i a mātou, kia mari kia tau, kia noho ki te ako, i te tika i te puno i te marama hoki, kia whakahorore i tō ingoa tapu, āwene.
Thank you, Councillor Tuaka. Also just want to acknowledge the first meeting of our new Chief Executive, so a very big welcome to Corin Haynes sitting in the Chief Executive seat for the first time. Welcome. Do we have any apologies? Everyone appears to be here. I haven't been notified of anyone for public forum. Is there any notifications of items not on the agenda for today's meeting? There is none. Is there any declarations of conflicts of interest for today's meeting?
Should be some for the contestable grants. Yes,
so we do have a paper further along for the contestable grants. Might just take some advice on how best to deal with that because there are many.
If I could all just list them because I need to list them in this part of the minutes.
Yeah, okay.
And then also be separately.
Sure. Excellent. So do we have any conflicts for that? Councillor Johns, we'll start with. Thank you, Councillor Johns. Councillor Corlett.
Thank you. Yes, I have with Ikaroa Radio Society.
Thank you, Councillor Corlett. Councillor Wards.
Yeah, I have conflict of interest with the Dannevirke Sports Club, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Wards. Councillor Tuaka.
I have a conflict of interest with Te Kiti Hauira's application.
Thank you, Councillor Tuaka. Councillor Naylor.
I have two conflicts of interest, one with the Woodville Lions Club and one with the Woodville Village Hall.
Thank you very much, Councillor Naylor. Any other conflicts? I have three, shows our connections to the community. I have a conflict with the Dannevirke A&P Society, the Woodville Lions and Tararua Reap. We will move on to confirmation of minutes. Our first one is on page 5, and that's confirming the minutes of our council meeting held on the 25th of February. Could I have someone move? Councillor Corlett, seconded by Councillor Petey Webber. Is there any questions on these minutes? Appears to be none. Is there any discussion? I'll put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you, team. We now move on to the Community Board and Community Committee minutes. So we'll start with the Dannevirke Community Board. Could I have someone move to receive? Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Amboy. Is there any questions on the Dannevirke Community Board minutes? Any discussion? Put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Move to page 25, which is the Ekatahuna Community Board. Could I have someone move that they are received, please? Councillor Corlett, seconded by Councillor Johns. Is there any questions on those minutes? Is there any discussion? Put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Page 31, minutes for Positively Woodville. There are 3 sets of minutes within here, so we'll take them as a group. Could I have someone move those minutes? Moved by Councillor Johns, seconded by Councillor Naylor. Sure, we'll get to comments in a moment. Are there any questions on the minutes? Councillor Wards.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question on page 34. There was a comment made in general business at this committee meeting about the damage to the flags that that they've been put up and that would appear they're only good for a 12-month life. I have a question that, given that Dannevirke itself has also invested in some of these flags, is that the indication we were given about their life term, or is it the winds that's blowing through that's causing damage? So
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but we will get that information back through. There has been some discussion of whether the flags are suitable to 100% be up the same flag over an extended period of time. I am aware that the Dannevirke Community Board are quite conscious of that because I've been involved in some of their discussions, and their strategy is to be rotating frequently the flags, which should give them a much longer lifespan, and Positively Woodville are having some of those discussions as well, but a very fair question. Any other questions? Councillor? Oh. Great. I'll open to comments with Councillor Naylor.
So just on the third minutes, I'm just finding that Elizabeth Kennedy was noted down as Elizabeth Naylor. So, so that was on page 39 of our agenda there, so as a visitor.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor. Very good pickup. And it certainly isn't, so that's why I thought it was a completely different person, because Elizabeth with a Z is definitely not the person that's sitting at the table. Can I please ask the representative to Positively Woodville to raise that at the next meeting to ensure that that's corrected? Thank you. Any other comments? Great, I'll put the vote for the 3 sets of Positively Woodville meeting minutes. All those in favour say aye. Against? Motion is carried. We now move to the Explore Pahia Tour minutes, which I believe is 1 set of minutes. Could I have someone move that those minutes are received, please? Councillor Tuaka, seconded by Councillor Naylor. Any questions? Any discussion? Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, Councillor Corlett was missing off the guest list there. He was at the meeting as well.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Naylor. Could I ask Councillor Kennedy at the next meeting to raise that, to have those updated? Any other comments? Put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Now, we are going to do a very, very slight reshuffle to the order of our paper. We have Catherine joining us to give us an update, Local Water Done Well update transition program, and that is item 10.4 on your agenda, page 133. So I'd like to welcome up Catherine and Peter.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is intended to give you an update of where things are at with the Local Water Done Well project and the establishment of the company. So with that, Catherine.
Sorry. Morena koutou. It's great to be here with you all again. So the purpose of this update, as Peter said, is just to excuse me, provide you with a regular update around how we're going with our Local Water Done Well program. I'm planning to come along to the council meeting every couple of months across the 4 councils, just to make sure that you as a group of elected members are kind of well across our program and priorities and how we're tracking. So we will be doing this every couple of months. You'll see and hear from me. I've got a short paper in your pack that just gives you a bit of a summary of where we're up to. The key points I just pull out of that, our program is proceeding in 2 main stages. The first stage runs till the end of this month. We're calling that legal establishment. So that is the work to be done to actually get the company up and running as a company and with a board. And then the second phase of that program will start from April and go through to the end of June next year, which is the operational transition, where all of the details and things get worked through, and we actually transition the council services and things across to the company. So we're coming, excuse me, sorry, recovering from a bad cold. So we're coming to the end of the first stage of that program at the moment. Our key focus over the last couple of months has been really establishing the permanent governance architecture that will exist for this new company and for you as shareholders in the new world. So that has been standing up the stakeholder forum, which the mayor and deputy mayor are your representatives on. That is a committee that is a representative committee of councils and iwi that will basically provide will be your oversight of the company once it's up and running. And then the other key piece of that governance architecture is obviously the board of directors of the new company, which we are in the very final stages of recruiting for at the moment. And we have some fantastic candidates coming through that process. So I'm very excited about that and what that means for the future of this organisation. So there are, I've included some detail in your paper around some of the key work areas that we're working on, but at the moment our priority is really making sure that we are ready for the incoming board, that we are preparing induction material and briefing material across all of those key areas of work around our financial strategy, our operational strategy, that sort of thing. So I'm very happy to take any questions on the paper.
Thank you very much for that, Catherine, and thank you for coming in person to give us an update and for the significant amount of work that you've personally been doing on this project and everyone involved. So very grateful. Thank you. Is there any questions? Councillor Tuaka?
Tēnā koe, tēnā korua. Just on page 136, the stakeholder forum membership, I just wanted to know, I might have missed something here, whether Ngāti Kahungunu o Tāmaki Nui Arua were included in this conversation in the selection of who would represent the Ngāti Kahungunu iwi on this board.
This one's complicated, through your worship, because it's a kānunu process, and so they were, I know Tāmaki Nui Arua were very interested in being included, but weren't. So that's having to be managed in a different way through the representation of the Tararua to that forum. That's because Rangatani also have a representation and will represent the Tāmaki Nui Arua view of the world.
Is there anything that... Oh, sorry,
Could I just add to that? Since the paper was published, Ngāti Kahungunu have advised me that they have switched their alternate member. So Ray Hall is no longer the alternate, and Tyson Schmidt, I've just been notified, is the new alternate. So Tyson Schmidt, that's been run through their appointments process. So, but I've just been notified of that in the last couple of days.
Tuaka.
I guess I just want to come back to, so though Rangitane or Tāmaki Nui Arua have their representative, just to make it clear, they are still very separate, and if there was a way that we could support them in having a voice in anyway, Kahungunu or Tāmaki Nui Arua, especially considering their interest in this kaupapa. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Tuaka, and I'll just make a brief comment here too, because I share the concern and have raised the concern and have also had some discussions with Ngāti Kahungunu ki Tāmaki Nui Arua, very, very brief and informal. When this was set up, it was set up to have one representative from each of the participating councils and one representative from each of the settlement entities, so through Rangatane and Ngāti Kahungunu. to ensure, and the hope was to make sure we had sufficient information flowing through, there was an alternate position derived, but those positions are not held by us or any of the councils. They are held by the settlement trusts, and it is for them to decide who their representatives are. So it would be inappropriate for us to tell them who those representatives would be. However, we do have a responsibility as a council, and as a council that has a memorandum of partnership with 2 iwi, to ensure that they are suitably informed and consulted, and that's a responsibility that we take seriously. And as Peter mentioned, is we will need to find different ways of being able to ensure that that information is there by working with the local iwi leadership. So I just thought I'd make those comments, that the concerns are not lost on us. Councillor Naylor.
So I was just on page 137, we're talking about following the completion of the board recruitment process, the forum's focus will move to the development of the statement of expectations. I'm sure I've been told this previously, but I can't quite find it. Is there a statement of expectations from each of the participating councils, or is it one single statement of expectations? And to that then, the stakeholders forum will be developing it, but do they sign it off, or does it come back to council for sign off?
So there is a single statement of expectations that is prepared by the stakeholder forum, so by the 4 participating shareholding councils and the 2 iwi. So that statement is developed by the forum, and then it will come back to the shareholding councils for adoption and for issuing to the company, because that's a matter of the issuing of it is a shareholder responsibility, but the development of it will be done by that representative forum that has both council and iwi representatives on it. You can, while it is a single statement that represents the expectations of the forum, you can nonetheless reflect in there expectations that are important to you as a council and as a single shareholder. So there is the ability to have things in there that are either district specific or water specific. So you might have a particular expectation that relates to wastewater, for example, or something that relates to the interests of Tararua or South Wairarapa or Masterton. So there is the ability to reflect that those specific points in there, but overall it's intended to be a single statement that reflects the combined expectations of the forum.
Councillor Amboy.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, and thank you for this report. It was very short but very brief and detailed. But I may have missed something, but I'm just curious to know what are the financial risks and uncertainties still outstanding? Thank you.
So the financial position of the company remains as it was in your water services delivery plans that you adopted in late August last year. Feels like some time ago. So that still reflects the current position of the new entity. There is obviously a lot of work, the next stages of the work on financial strategy and pricing and things that we are kind of getting underway with. But at the moment, that view of the world through your water services delivery plan is still what we're working to. Councillor Johns.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just going back to that earlier discussion on iwi representation, can you tell me whether Tyson Schmidt is ki Wairarapa or ki Tamakinui?
We're not aware at this stage. That's new information this morning that's come.
Is there any other questions? Move to comments. Are there any comments? Appears to be none. I just want to reiterate my thanks for the work program. Definitely think that regular updates like this will be very, very helpful to council. I have been privileged to have been involved in the director selection process and was a part of the selection panel for that. I'd like to just reiterate Catherine's comments that we have had a high calibre of applicants come through. The stakeholder forum is working in a very, very constructive manner, where certainly the Tararua District's voice is heard in those discussions on an equal footing with all other councils. So if there's no further comments, I'll just move back to the recommendation on page 133 that we receive the update. Could I have someone move that? Councillor Naylor, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wards. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming in person to deliver that for us. Now we're just going to take a bit of a jump back to page 49. Page 49 in your papers is the decision action items from our last meeting, and it also captures some some committee actions. So are there any questions on the decision action items? Just give a moment because we've flicked a whole lot of pages, so that is on me, not on. Deputy Mayor Wards.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a very useful little tool, and I know that between the roles of the different committees and this, that we'll all get our head around what sits where. But I do have a couple of queries regarding on page 51. A little concerned that I love seeing the yellows and definitely the greens, but when I see a column that's got not started with very little explanation beside it, I just wonder what strategies will we have in place to make sure that some of this stuff does actually get kicked off. I'll refer in particular to, and, you know, apologies to the chair of the infrastructure committee and the GM, that this may well get addressed in their upcoming committee meeting, I'm not sure, but there was quite a few actions required and requested where there has been not started written beside them. So just keen to understand what the strategy going forward might be, Your Worship, perhaps through to CE.
Cool. Through Your Worship. So, good question, and still wrapping my head around this, but yeah, I mean, for me, the key thing will be that this needs to be a living register, and that we're not just visiting this at the council meeting, we're actually looking at this immediately after the council meeting and then being clear on what we need to do and what the likely timelines are as well, so we can articulate that.
Thank you. I'm reassured by that comment. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Corin, and thank you for raising that, Deputy Mayor Wards. I had similar comments on page 52. Page 52 has a number of items, all bar one, and page 53 that doesn't have a due date on it. So I suppose that the request is, and this is new, this is evolving, but it is something that could be very valuable for us as a governance tool. So the request is to ensure that we have enough information if something isn't making progress as an explanation as to why or to where we're heading, and then with a due date so we can say, look, we know that's been worked on, but that's pushed out a little bit, which is completely reasonable. Councillor Naylor.
May I make a suggestion that we put one more column in that says expected start date? And then the not started would make sense.
fit onto what
Yes,
Aid is
the manager of Democracy Services is slightly concerned. However, there are solutions to be able to do that within the narrative, I think. So I think if it's not started but included in the narrative that this has not started and is due to start, that would be a really helpful addition, which I think covers your point. Is there any other questions or comments? Appears to be none, so I will, this is 8.1, so could I have someone move that the report providing an update on decision action items be noted, moved by Councillor John, seconded by Councillor Wallace. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to page 55, item 10.1, which is the 6-month performance report for the period ending 31 December. So I'd like to welcome up Beth to the table.
Morena koutou. It's been a long time since I've been in this hot seat, so thank you for having me back. Before I start, I'm just going to give a quick overview on how this report is structured to the new councillors. I think that will be quite helpful. So it's quite a collaborative document, so it's not just me that has written the content within this performance report. So we have others within wider council that contribute to the content. So you'll see as the report progresses with their presentation, I'll have Mike and Eugene come up and present the CAPEX section of the report. Then I'll take over from there and go over sections 5 and 6, covering off our operational performance. And then it's still me on section 7, going over the treasury. I'll ask Sarah to make a cameo appearance. She's been booted off this report because she no longer presents her service performance measures within this report. That's been moved to the Performance and Monitoring Committee. Tracy will come up and present the debtor section of the report, and then I will finish off with the self-funded activities. So, based off that, I'll ask Eugene and Mike to come up to the table, please.
Good morning, Mayor Scott and councillors. I think it'll just be me. I think Mike's left me. So I'll take it as read. Since January 31st, since the figures that are in the report, we have spent an extra $4 million, which brings us up to 32% as opposed to the 27% that was in the report. And when we account for the externally funded projects, this is actually about 35%. This is actually about 35%. So that's an increase of about 8% on what is in the report. We have some high value capital projects still in the planning procurement phase, which have a high capital value associated with them. We are going through the agreements at the moment. They've been finalised, and we'll see the procurement of some essential equipment starting within the next 2 to 3 months. So it's some rather large capital spend there, and they're associated with the impounded. They're associated with the impounded supply, and which is the pre-treatment or clarifier and the reservoirs, and there's a Paiatua pool on top of that as well. So aligning with our annual plan forecasting for the rest of the year, which is currently being finalised, the PMO currently predicts 75 to 80% budget spend for this financial year, with notable committed projects stated for this year and kept being carried forward. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of those are still going through the procurement phase, and some are in contract negotiation or detailed design evaluation, or some are just entering a tender phase. Those projects include the Paiatua Pool, Dannevirke Impound and Supply, district water network extensions, district backflow prevention. There's the Paiatua wastewater treatment plant upgrade, the Paiatua weighbridge, and the Paiatua treatment plant rising main, and the Woodville reservoir renewal. Are there any questions?
Okay, we'll open up for questions. Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, I've noted that 75 to 80% of the budget was planned to be expended. So the question is, are we being too optimistic and assuming what we're going to be able to achieve? I know the annual plan's set well in advance, so it seems to be a repeating story that I've noted even in my short time here, that we're not getting anywhere near our budget on our expenditure. And so, and there's further questions further in the paper, but I won't address those now. And so I'm just trying to get my head around, is this because we're being optimistic about how much we can achieve in the year, or is it just constant delays and everything else that's pushing it out? Because it seems to me that we've taken ratepayers' money to get this work done. And I know it's only a small amount, but if we hadn't needed all that money, then we would have perhaps had a slightly lesser rates increase, or perhaps I'm being naive. But it just concerns me to see that we're not getting close to 100%. Yeah. Perhaps I've reframed the question, because I made a comment as I went through there. So the question is, were we being optimistic when we set the budget? So is this back to us, not getting enough information to make the decision, or is it just delays?
I think your question's very clear, so thank you. We'll pass to Eugene.
Yeah, through His Worship. I don't think we were being too optimistic. I think the plan was in place. With some of these projects, like the large capital ones with the impounded supply, the Paiatua Pool, we've had to do more investigations and do more detailed design to ensure that what we are giving the community is fit for purpose and has security and will last its design life. And some of those delays will push through to next year, but it is about ensuring that what we put in place is indeed going to work and is going to last.
Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Wards.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's the point that's made here at 4.8, Eugene, and I don't know whether Mike will be able to comment as well, but there's a statement there that it's worth noting that the change with the implementation of CCO and our BAU effectively is going to require a dual pathway from the PMO office to be able to monitor both of those streams of work. So it's worth noting this change still has major assumptions tied to it, with separate support lines needed to ensure staff confidence within the TDC sphere. Can I have a bit of an explanation around, are we looking at increasing resources to be able to do that, or is the PMO office, which I have huge respect for, have a strategy to be able to manage those two lines of work? Be interested in your feedback on that, please.
Yeah, through his worship. We have been working together to associate or align our office with the Three Waters work and all council work. So we've got specialists within our office that are more aligned with Three Waters infrastructure, and some others that certainly are more aligned with the council and facilities work.
Any further questions for Eugene, Councillor Amboy?
Thanks, Mayor Scott. Just on page 59 and the table within that in 4.5, I'm just curious if the recent events with fuel has impacted the year-to-date transportation costs and if this has been included in the report. Thanks.
Through his worship. No, that's just very recent. This the costs for this report have ended on 31st of January, so we've not included those as yet.
So if it hasn't been included, will we see an increase in costs from the fuel crisis?
Councillor Amboy, this report is for the months ending up to the 31st of December. It's a fair question, but a different question, and I have been assured by the Chief Executive if there is any huge variances in relation to that, then that elected members will be notified. Suffice to say, at the moment we are very, very early days, so the impact has not been significantly felt, but certainly won't be in the reporting as of yet. Any other questions or comments? I'll just make a... Mike?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment on a couple of questions that I overheard. And sorry that I wasn't in the room when I was called up to the table, just trying to sort out some other operational matters. The comment just before around our projected budget spend out to 75, 80 sort of % at the moment includes under that figure, you know, what we were looking at for a carry forward as well. So those being what are currently projected as already committed. There are a couple in there as well that were also put on hold pending some sort of reviews, those being the universal water metering projects as well. On top of that, you have community funded projects, i.e. the Paetua pool, and they were put in the LTP as part of that, which was, you know, as it came through at the very end of the entire process, so forecasting things had to occur as it was already put in. I'd like to also highlight that the last year we saw over 90% delivery out to the budget, so these being just capital project works as well, not tied necessarily to the same as the rates for OPEX. So yeah, a couple of those comments here.
No, and thank you very much, Mike. I was going to make similar or related comments to close it off. First off, thank you to you and your team for the level of reporting that we receive so we can give appropriate oversight. It is really important when we're looking at delivery that we're balancing getting things delivered, but making sure that we're also doing the right delivery. And we are in some fairly unprecedented times with the new water CCO being set up, which does lead to some reprioritisation. I was going to talk about universal water metering is a very, very good example of where the team were set up, ready to go, would have been able to progress that project, but a decision had been made to pause on that project. So the team are only able to deliver with the tools that we give them. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we will have some reprioritisation coming through. Because of that, there has been some reprioritisation with our annual plan, which is a really important bit to note, which follows direction from elected members to be looking at affordability. So we will be, it's not just optimism, it's that some things have changed from the time that the last annual plan was put in. So I just wanted to acknowledge that some of that's our fault, not theirs. Any other comments to make on that part. No, thank you. I'll pass back to Beth. Thank you very much, team.
Thank you, Eugene and Mike. So if we go to head to section 5 on page 62 of your agenda, I'll cover off the high-level operational performance. I'm going to be joined by my friends, Tracy and Sarah. So I'm going to take most of this section as read, but just to give you a high-level highlight, I guess, of what is in this section, we can see that for the 6 months ended 31 December, we're tracking ahead for where we budgeted. So we budgeted to have an operating surplus of $10.9 million, and we achieved a result of 12.84. So that's just under $2 million favourable. Most of that is driven, if we look at the graph in figure 4, which is below the summary operating table, we can see that most of that revenue is driven from our external subsidies, and our key external funders are the waste disposal levy. Sorry, I need to slow myself down. I do have a tendency to talk quite fast. So just better off funding of 217k, and the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. So some of these we don't budget for, such as the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. We don't budget that. Sorry, I need to keep talking into the microphone. And the timing of when we've received the funding. So sometimes we can't put in a claim until we've spent the money. So it's just a timing variance. We've also underspent in our operational expenditure. So key players for that is our insurance, personnel costs, and lower contracted services. But we're expecting those to just be a budget phasing issue, and they'll catch up as the year progresses. I do wish to draw your attention to the insurance, though. Based on our current figures and where we're forecasted to land at year end, we're going to see a favourable variance of around 140k, and that's mostly driven by the benefits we've received for the material damage cover and our favourable insurance environment at the moment. But all things going well, and where things had landed mid-year, we're expecting to be tracking slightly favourable to where we're budgeted to be. Another thing I would like to draw your attention to in the high-level section is that, based on the feedback from the presentation of the first quarter report, we've incorporated into our graphs the year titles in the actual versus budget columns of the summary operating performance table. So hopefully that is helpful moving forward. And something I'm very excited about on page 63, which is figure 5, we have our awesome Gavin, he has an amazing talent too. I can just describe to him what's in my head of how I want something to look, and he has this amazing ability to take that information and put it together into something that makes sense. So this is still work in progress, but it gives a snapshot for how each activity is tracking for the period. So based off this, we can see most of our activities at 31 December are tracking ahead of where we had planned for them to be, with waste management and roading tracking slightly under. The detail around why we're over or under budget for each of these activities are detailed in section 6 of the report. But other than that, I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, and I also do need to apologise for the timeliness of this report. My error, I got the months all mixed up, and I was a bit too excited and I missed out February. So this should have been presented to you all in February, but I went January, March and skipped February. So usually these reports will be presented in a more timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. We certainly received it within our time frame that we needed to have it by, so that's totally fine. Thank you for the detail surrounding that and the work that's gone into this report. It's significant. Are there any questions on the sections? Deputy Mayor Wards.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm focusing on section 5. Thank you, Beth, but please commend the whole team, because the level of detail in these reports now means I haven't got nearly as many questions as historically I might have. I do have one, though, related to 5.5 around the personnel. I mean, it's looking good at the moment with the statement around the vacancy. So I'm possibly, through you, Your Worship, seeking some guidance or reassurance from the CE regarding the process we follow when there are vacancies, and whether or not you and the team consider each on its merit prior to seeking to. So just want some clarification on the process that you and ELT will be following. Thank you, Corin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wards. I'll pass to the Chief Executive, but I'll also just make a caveat that our Chief Executive is very, very recent into role, so we can appreciate that he may still be developing some of that methodology.
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, so the approach that we will take, and I've already talked to ELT about this, is if we have vacancies, we will look at the vacancy and be confident that if we're going to recruit to it, that it is a vacancy we need, or indeed is FTE needed somewhere else in the organisation as well. I can assure you that we will place rigour around our decisions in that space.
Any other questions? Yep, we'll wait for comments in a moment. Is there any questions before we move to comments? Open it up for comments. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Scott. This is on the ledger on page 67. This is just a comment. I actually said this, and it's great to see it at the bottom of the page, number 4. It's great to see it in print, that we were carting water to Waipuck. Just a little thing there. Maybe if we put a roof on that organisation, it would save it getting wet. To me, that's just a logical thing to do. That's my comment.
Thank you for your comment, and I see the GM responsible for that area is nodding, so I appreciate that comment. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Is there any other comments? Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, this report was great. It was much clearer, to Sharon's point. I love the graph so you can quickly then go and identify, areas to have a look at. Good to see the favourable stuff happening. So obviously you're putting in the effort to make sure that we're staying on track. So just wanted to commend the team for that.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor. I certainly echo that, so thank you, team. Any other comments? We'll move on to the next section.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just add, before I move on to section 6, that the third quarter will be our critical quarter, so that will determine whether or not we're on track at year end. So there'll be a lot more detail coming through in quarter 3. So section 6 is the more detailed explanations for each of the activities and whether they're tracking ahead or under budget. Did that come across right? Did I word that right? So in the past, we've gone through each activity line by line, so I'm happy to take your lead, Your Worship, on how you want to tackle this section.
No, thank you very much, Beth. Councillor Wallace has already kicked off with a comment, but I'll just open it up to the floor. Are there any questions or comments? Let's mix it up a bit for this one. Any questions or comments on these, on the detailed explanations? Councillor Naylor.
I think you could take 5 and 6 as one thing. I think, to me, when I made my comments a moment ago, I was commenting that I'd read through section 6, I had all the explanations from question 5. If I'd just read question 5 and then asked you questions, I'd have been asking you everything you covered in section 6. So, yeah, great.
Fair point. Do councillors feel that they've had an opportunity for the detailed explanations? Excellent. We'll move on to the next section.
Thank you. So I'll move on to section 7, which is me again. Sorry. Treasury. I'm going to take this section as read as well. Our cash position. Sorry, let me just find my page. On the dashboard in figure 7, on the Treasury performance, you'll see our cash position is quite ahead of where we'd planned to be. So I'll give some background and context to that. So as part of the work that we do in the Treasury space, we work very closely with our external Treasury advisors, or PwC. So within that, they give us strategies on how we can pretty much reduce the interest rate risk to council. So some of that sometimes involves pre-funding debt maturity so we can lock in good interest rates. Other times we execute interest rate swaps, and that also mitigates the interest cost going higher. What you'll see here, part of that $21 million, we've got $15 million of it on term deposit. And of that 15 million, 8 million of that is pre-funded debt, earmarked for our April, sorry, my voice has changed, earmarked for our April 2026 debt maturities. So that's why our cash is significantly higher than what we had planned in that area. Also, the remaining variance is just due to timing. So when we're budgeting and phasing our budget for the year, it's really, we can't accurately determine what expenditure is going to go out in each particular month. So it might cross over a different period. And with December falling over the holiday season, some of those expenditures you'll see reflected in quarter 3. Do we have any questions on the dashboard before I hand over to Sarah to explain about our non-compliance?
Thanks, Beth. Any questions to start with? Deputy Mayor Wards?
Not as many as I normally have, so. Beth, can you please clarify for me, in simple terms, given the explanation you've provided that we appear to have pre-funded a lot more than we probably needed, and that's why we've got so much cash versus what we possibly might have needed. So I'm interested in understanding, will there be some unintended consequences by the fact that we've pre-funded a lot of debt come April when that investment has matured? And also, I've had a quick squiz again, but I can't see a comment. Oh, the headroom, we're still okay then, aren't we? Thank you.
Through your worship, thank you for that excellent question, Deputy Mayor. With regards to our pre-funded debt, sorry, I just had a mind blank. It all falls back to our Treasury and Risk Management policy, which I'm going to talk about in a second around our compliance in that space. But we've talked about this in the past at our Finance and Performance Committee meetings, where we are pre-funding debt to remain within compliance within our Treasury policy. And within that policy, the easiest way I can describe it is we have 4 or 5 buckets. So we have a 0 to 3 bucket, which we have a maximum percentage of debt we want to fall in that bucket. Then we have a 3 to 6. I can't quite remember the buckets off the top of my head. But that's so that our debt portfolio is spread, and it just is the best risk mitigation tool that we have as well as utilising our swaps, and if it's a favourable timing, we get the term deposit interest offset against interest cost situation. That's when we're also considering pre-funding. With regards to our Treasury and Risk Management policy, you'll recall, and I think I've brought it up in the prior council, so my apologies for new elected members, but in the last term we raised that we have a lot of our debt falling. I think there's a significant amount that falls in April 2026, which in an ordinary circumstance we would be pre-funding, or we would have engaged in pre-funding, because we have certainty around our debt portfolio. With the Three Waters CCO and the transfer of that debt mechanism not quite settled yet, or not quite known, we're not wanting to pre-fund debt just for the sake of pre-funding debt, because we don't know what that transfer mechanism looks like just yet. So what we're proposing is, we're not out of compliance with our policy yet, but it is something that we're raising that might come up come our April. Well, our estimates within our Treasury tool are come April we will be slightly out of compliance, but we're wanting to flag this in our report to you today, but also bring on our Treasury advisors hopefully to the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting to talk about our policy and to talk about what mitigations we can put in place for that. Wanting to really wrap around the control and make sure that we are compliant in every which way we possibly can, however noting the uncertainty that comes with that debt transfer mechanism. Did you want to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add something too. Sorry, team tag here. And just thanks very much, Sarah, through you, Chair. Just to bring you back up to the top level again, compliance with Treasury policy means that we are mitigating risk to the promises within our budgets and control of our interest rates. If you go back to the this first graph here that we're looking at, down the bottom, we budgeted for December 25 4.32 of interest rate exposure that we had put into our annual plan, which we thought was a reasonable estimation of what we would be comfortable in our budgeting and rating. We actually achieved 4.05 inside our Treasury policy with this timing of cash that's unpredictable in the phasing at the time we set it. And if we hadn't done any hedging, any Treasury policy mitigation of risk, we would have actually been paying 4.81. So those are the key things that you're looking for to know that we're inside Treasury policy, and actually at the moment we're actually outperforming our acceptable risks that we had inside our budget. Again, acceptable risk of 4.32 being what we can only predict based on future ratings that we take from the market with long-term forecasting. So that actually the market's moved in our favour, and our traders have actually done a really good job inside our Treasury policy.
Thanks for that explanation, Tracy, and this will be probably the first meeting for a while I haven't been asking about hedging, because we've had a favourable result. We don't always, but it's nice to see that catching up and keeping things relatively smooth, which is the purpose of it. Any other, Sarah?
Through your worship, I'll just address the second part of the question around our financial headroom. So in our management report that previously went to the finance performance, we had a detailed piece around our financial headroom and the compliance that we have in that space. So I have brought that back into this report so that it's not lost. But as you can see within here, we are compliant within our financial headroom. I do want to stress that although it looks at December that we're getting close, I just want to, we've included in the blurb, but I just want to make sure it's understood. So the headroom is calculated on our total operational revenue, and at the moment, well, at 31 December, we have the full year rates collected. However, we only have 6 months worth of revenue generated, so that's why it looks quite tight. Had I forecasted this out, well, I have within the annual plan, we are compliant and we do have significant headroom. So although it does look a little concerning, I'm not concerned yet, and I just want to reinforce that to the elected members.
No, thank you, Sarah, and I think your narrative was really clear in the paper, so appreciate that. Any other questions for the team? Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the Treasury performance net debt position at the top of the page there. Looking at the year-to-date actual, we've actually only borrowed 80 million. And I assume that when you take the 21,006 off that, it gives us our net debt position of 58,994. But the year-to-date budget was 89,791, and our planned cash position was 8 million. They don't seem to add up. To me, that should have been our year-to-date budget position would have been 89,000. This the $8 million budgeted cash position. So is that an error, or am I missing something somewhere?
Through your worship, if I've understood you correctly, Councillor Naylor, you're trying to link the 89,000 planned borrowings less the 8,000 planned cash position to get to the net debt position up the top of 91. I think it's something we need to update on our graphs in the back end. So we will, the treasury position portion is correct, the 89 versus 80 and the 821. The net debt position of 91,365 budgeted, I think we need to come back and correct.
No, thank you for that, and good pick-up, Councillor Naylor. Any other questions or comments? Appears to be none. I'll let you carry on.
Okay, I'll take it as read. The general commentary that I've got around this is that we have a favourable trend of downwards in our aged debt. That's due to what we've been talking to over the last quarter or so in regards to the tighter internal procedures for regular debt follow-up for overdue debts. Still getting towards making phone calls, but definitely a more regular escalation into notifying customers that they may have missed their instalment payment, which is having a good success, as you can see in the downtrend, and also working closer with our external debt manager as well, with the back and forward communication and the escalation of the process that the external debt collections go through as well, so they don't sit on debt for too long before it escalates into the next period of contacting the ratepayer and emphasising that at some point we need to settle the debt and we go into special payment plans after the end of those discussions if possible as well, which is again why the debt's going down, because we're proactively working with the ratepayers on a more regular basis than what we were in probably in the past year or so, to actually help the ratepayers get themselves back on track. So at this point I assume the trending will continue as we work through those overdue debts. It will have probably a little bit of an up and down period. We will be more successful than others, with the intention of just getting down to the point where it's ratepayers that are going to be overdue debts for us, unfortunately, which we will need to escalate into higher areas of retrieving that overdue. Any questions?
Thank you very much for that, Tracy. Just to highlight that I'm very impressed with the reporting. Similar to the Deputy Mayor's comments beforehand, this is an area where usually I would have a lot of questions. I have less. I may still have some, but I'll open that up to the floor first. Are there any questions on Tracy's debtors report? Councillor Naylor.
Just the one on the total abandoned land over debt thing, and I see the comment there, and you're going to provide more detail also in the next report, so perhaps I'm just jumping the gun. But we're going to have to write off some of the debt from the sale of some of the two properties that were sold, but the reserve was met, but we didn't recover fully the debt. Was there, why, I suppose two ways I could word this, were we not able to set the reserve to a point that we would have fully recovered the debt because the land value wasn't there? Is that the situation?
The total debt outstanding is made up of rates and penalties. The focus around abandoned land, probably for the last 12 months or so, has stagnated. We've now done a lot more closer look and tighter process in addressing this with our external debt manager. It's quite a complicated process, which is why it's stagnated. It needs to go through the courts and tendering process and so forth. So when we set the reserve, we set it originally to the market, as long as the market value of the property is round about enough to cover the debt, which you'd assume would be, although surprisingly sometimes it's marginally not much different. We set it to retrieve the overdue rates plus the penalty interest that is on there. The reason we want to do full debt recovery and not surplus is because our whole mission is to retrieve our debt. And also turn it into a property with an owner that now wants that property, which will then start paying rates on that property. So it's a twofold motivation. On some of the reserves, they weren't met to our satisfaction, so we actually relisted the tender again. So we do try and go to two tries at the market. One of the ones that we sent back out for second tender, just for interest of everyone, actually did come back and meet our reserve and covered our debt, which we were very happy with. We don't usually go for a third one if we can see that the second tender has come back with more offered on the purchase price, then we feel like we've done our due diligence. We've got as close as possible to a property that may not be desirable on the market, and then we weigh up the advantage of being able to charge annual rates on the go forward. It's quite complicated, but yes, we definitely give it two trials and a lot of thought into the reserve process as well to get the outcome we're looking for.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Councillor Corlett.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Thank you for the report. It gives a lot of detail to people who are sort of very new to this. Assuming that we're going to have another increase in the arrears in July once the rates come around again, do we have any idea, or do we talk about what the feel is as to why these arrears are happening? Is there something that can be done to make that easier for people, or are there things there, their drivers that are mainly for this? And are we following through the timelines for debt recovery correctly?
Through you, Chair. So technically, the rates are payable within the 12 months. So technically, they don't become arrears until the following year. That's why we see that flow into the arrears, that spike back up in July. We send reminder letters to remind people that they've missed the payment of their rates every instalment period, so just after those instalment periods. What we hope for is that the ratepayer reaches out to us and we can arrange payment plans for those ratepayers. If they are financially struggling with, not so much struggling, but it's a financial strain on the amount that we're asking for, we can spread it out over the year into another year if we need to. Bearing in mind you can't keep on pushing it forward because it just keeps on accumulating. So that is one of the standard approaches that the rates and revenue team take when they get a call in. So the letters we send out is to give the opportunity to these ratepayers to conclude what they can. Unfortunately, rates are mandatory. Rates do need to be paid. We don't waive rates under financial duress. We can only offer solutions in regards to helping people manage their debt with us. Does that answer your question?
Partially, it's more, are we seeing that it is people are unable to pay it? Is that the reason, or are they just holding off paying it? Is probably more direct.
I think, like any industry, you've got a mix of people that don't want to pay and they'd rather spend their money somewhere else, and then people that can't really afford to pay the debt that's mandatory. So we try our best to balance that under the constraints of it's legally obligated to pay them.
I'm just going to make a really quick comment there. Some of, I suppose our responsibility, sure, to understand some of the reasons, because we need to try and help people get into compliance with the system. Although it's not up to us to be passing judgment as to why someone's rates may not have been paid, it's to try and help facilitate that payment as best we can. You've already answered some of my questions, but we'll move into comments. It is very, very clear to see the benefit of having DMS working on their standard process. I've definitely seen the numbers improve from there, and helping get those arrears down is a good thing for us as a council, but it's also a really good thing for those ratepayers involved, because they're not having to carry that debt that can be really difficult. Councillor Corlett asked why this is happening. I think as an elected member, you will come to hear a lot why this is happening, and one of those reasons transparently has been we have increased substantially rates over a period. They've gone up very, very significantly, and for some that has caused difficulty in budgeting and how they pay for it. So I think we have to appreciate that because we see it, and we certainly are a council that is working to respond to that part of it. But that early intervention stuff is critical. So I'm very, very grateful for your work on it. Are there any other comments to make on this report, Councillor Wallace?
Yeah, thank you. Mayor Scott, yeah, I just commend you because the figures are going down, 20% down, etc., etc. So we're not going up. So that's keep up the good work.
Yep, very strongly endorse that. Any other comments? Thank you for the reporting. Thank you for the way that it's being displayed. It definitely works for me in a visual sense, being able to understand the information. So very grateful for that. I'll pass back to Beth.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to finish off with section 9, self-funded activities. I'm going to take the next two sections as read, but I will draw your attention to the pensioner housing activity. I just want to comment that you'll see that our overdrawn reserve for this activity has improved since the first quarter. So, and that's by about $90,000. So,
thank you, Beth. That's I'm glad you pointed that out because it's a very, very significant shift and percentage-wise. So very good. Are there any questions on self-funded activities? Are there any comments? Councillor Naylor.
And just on that that point you made there, when I first read it, I thought it was $293,000 overdrawn to a positive $208,000. So you just needed the word overdrawn on the added to the report there, because it looked like a big increase. And then, but yeah, to your point.
If only. Deputy Mayor Watts.
I've been waiting for my colleague to ask a question, but if he's not, I'm going to. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, 9.11, 9.1.2, 9.1.3, our friends, the forestry. You've explained the ins and outs and ups and downs in that. When are we going to stop seeing this particular item in terms of a discussion about expenditure and because there have been some changes yet again since the previous quarter, and I'm curious to understand when this will no longer be part of our discussion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll pass to the team.
Through your worship, thank you for that excellent question. Happy to take the elected members' leaves and no longer report on a self-funding activity for the forestry and incorporate it within our detailed explanations if you wish. It does come in the detailed explanations as well as this, but because it is a self-funding activity is why it has historically sat as its own part of the report, but happy to take your lead.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy Mayor, it wasn't about not reporting it, it was hoping to see that some of the costs start disappearing from that. And I think you have explained the reason why it's in there, but I certainly have some sympathy for the question, but we will keep it in for now. Any other comments? No, great, I'll pass back to Beth for any other comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have no, actually I'll tell a lie, I do have a comment. So just to look back to Mike and Eugene's, I'm going way back, comment, the question, Councillor Amboy, around the fuel costs and whether or not we're going to see the impact for that. I just want to signal now that we probably won't see any impact until Q4, the full year report, given that these fuel increases have only happened this month. We're heading towards the end of Q3, so any impact to fuel costs will be identified and reported in the full year report. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. No other comments, team, for this report. A very weighty report. One that this report, councillors used to sit in the Finance and Performance Committee. I asked for this to come to full council because we all need to have a good understanding and appreciation of council's finances as governors. So thank you for doing that and for the detail. We'll move back to page 55 where our recommendation to receive the report is listed. Could I get someone to move? That's Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Corlett. Any further discussion? Put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, team. And we will now move to page 91, which is the endorsement of the 2026-27 proposed annual plan and proposed fees and charges. So I'll hand over to Sarah and Tracy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Morena, everyone. I don't think I had the opportunity to say that at our last report. I will take the report as read. There is quite a bit of detail captured within this report. There is also quite a bit of detail captured within the variances listed in the published document, but I will chat to a couple of pieces if that's okay. I just want to highlight that this is the first time since 2017 Tararua District Council is going with a recommendation or an endorsement not to consult on its annual plan. So this is a significant piece of work, which means we've done a really great job this annual plan, given that there's nothing significant for us to be needing to engage our community on. As mentioned in the report, all of the proposed fees and charges have an inflationary adjustment unless I have specified a rationale for why not. We are seeking a recommendation to reduce the Councillor Deputy Mayor Wards, we are seeking a recommendation to reduce the accelerated debt repayment from 2% of rates to 1.5% of rates. As you can see within the report itself, the rates distribution that we get from the 1.5 option to reduce down to 4.83 just gives us a really tight rates distribution. If I reflect back to the 2026 annual plan, we had 518 rating units that were having rates increases from 12 to 20%. So the fact that all of our rates increases are falling under this proposed option, primarily in the 0 to 5 and the 5 to 8, is really significant for us as a council. So I wanted to highlight that. And then the utilisation of the general purpose reserve. I just want to talk about this a little bit because we have talked about it briefly in the annual plan workshop pre-Christmas. So the rationale for utilising this reserve is In year one of our long-term plan, we selected an option that meant we were going to rate smooth the rates impact so that year one was not an 19% rates increase, it was reduced. And we were going to catch up these payments over years 2 and 3. In year 3 of the long-term plan, which is the year we're proposing for this annual plan, there was a significant, there's a catch-up payment that was required to repay what we unfunded in year 1. So it was a $950,000, if my memory serves me correctly, loan repayment, of which we're proposing to utilise the Infracon proceeds that are sitting within our general purpose reserve. Just want to highlight that this does not mean we're at negative $750,000 for year 1 of the next long-term plan. This is a one and done type scenario. So just in case my messaging hasn't articulated that, just wanted to make sure I've got that across. And then the last piece is around not to consult on our annual plan. I've given quite a bit of a significance assessment in there. There is nothing unusual, or the levers we have utilised this annual plan are not different to any other annual plan or consultation that we've already undertaken. So based off that, we're not seeking to consult on this annual plan. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll open up to questions in just a moment, but I also just wanted to make some introductory comments on the annual plan, or potentially we may look to be calling this the annual budget when it comes through for formal adoption, because in effect that's what this is. We've already been through a large consultation process for our long-term plan, a consultation process that is not cheap, and we decided through that process what we'd be delivering for our community. We just went through an election process. That election process was consultation in its purest sense, in some ways of looking at it. And particularly, I know that I heard the message loud and clear that affordability was a top priority for our community. We were just talking about the debtors report, but we do know that affordability is a key priority. When we look at consultation is going to become vitally important for us when we get into the long-term plan, because the long-term plan is where we're going to have to make some very, very big conversations with our community to make sure that a lower rates increase than what we've traditionally had recently is sustainable, and it's going to have to be sustainable with rates capping. Effectively, though, this annual budget will be us delivering on the long-term plan without significant variance, but in a significantly more affordable way. So that is the change. I just do want to highlight that our long-term plan projected us to deliver the same work that we will be delivering mostly at 11.84%. That's what we consulted on. That's what we told the community that the rates increase for this year would be. There has been a significant amount of work that has gone in to reducing that number to 4.83. But I also do want to acknowledge here that any increase will be difficult for some members of our community. Hopefully, though, through, and I don't want to predetermine the decision, but what we decide today will make that less difficult for our community than what it might have otherwise been. So with that, because obviously the annual budget or annual plan is of particularly high interest to me, I just wanted to add that framing, but I'll now open it up to questions. Thank you. Councillor Naylor.
Just one perhaps very naive question. There is a significant change in that we're dropping the forecast from 11.84 down to 4.83, and I assume because we're not changing the content, we don't need to go out and consult on that, but that is, to me, a significant change.
Yes, it is. No, I just wanted to loop back from Sarah, through you, Chair, through the Mayor, and back to what Sarah started with, which is the main reason we've been able to deliver with the same service level for less is because we have used the reserve and we have decreased the debt repayment for this year. So both of those are very strong accounting integrity adjustments to help with the affordability for this year. So a lot more work will go into the LTP, as we know, beyond this annual plan, which will then talk to all the other options that we've got available to us as well. So that is why we've managed to deliver the services the way that we have.
Sorry, I'll jump in there. Thank you for that context, which was well documented within the paper. Part of it as well is, yes, the rating amount has changed, but that hasn't been to an adverse impact through to our ratepayers while still delivering the same services. Yes, there has been some, ways of doing that using reserve funding, I think to a very good purpose, and looking at our debt repayment. We've also had some very, very significant operational savings that have been highlighted within the report as well. So I don't want to undo the significant work that's been done by the team to make sure that we've got phasing right and that we've also made some operational savings within it. Yeah.
It just no comment on the fact that you've done a fabulous job. It was just that I didn't read anywhere that we have to report on a significant negative impact, or but this is a significant positive impact as far as I'm concerned. And I don't, for a moment, suggest that we should be going out and consulting on this, but I was just sort of it is a difference to the long-term plan from
Thanks.
what we...
I'll hand over to Sarah, who might be able to clarify that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to provide a bit more answer to your question that you've got there, Councillor Naylor, we did obtain a legal opinion around this because it is a significant... understand that there's positive and negative significant assessments. The feedback that we received from that opinion is that because the significant, which I've tried to detail within our significance assessment piece, the levers that we have used to get us to this point are not any different from any other previous consultation Council has undertaken.
And just to add to that, and thank you for, because the legal advice piece is very, very important, including our in-house legal advice, which has been backed up by external advice. This is not to say, though, that we won't be engaging with our community, and that is well documented within this report. We certainly will be, and also using some of that feedback for our long-term plan. Our long-term plan, though, has to be where our focus is. That's where we build that sustainable change for our community. And as councillors will be well aware that that process has already started before we've even adopted a draft annual budget. We are already working on our long-term plan, so it's a key priority for us. Are there any other I'll just check if there's any other questions first. Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, so I think my niggling little minor concern was, were we being compliant, because there was a variation to the long-term plan, albeit being very positive. So your reassurance around the legality of that means that we're not going to come back, someone's going to come back later on and say, hey, you didn't stick to the long-term plan. So naive question perhaps, but...
Sorry, did you have a further question in there, Councillor Naylor?
Great.
Is there any other questions? Appears to be none. Are there any other comments that you wish to make before we open up to comments? I'll now open up to comments. Deputy Mayor Wards.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll seek your guidance as to how far the comments go. But in section 4 regarding the use of these levers, huge congratulations to the team for their creativity and acknowledging that decisions that have been made previously do have consequences that we've addressed, and I speak specifically around the unfunding process that allowed us to smooth rates across the way. So congratulations on that. I accept your apology, Sarah, regarding the revision of the debt repayment plan, and appreciate that you remember how passionate around trying to ensure that our debt repayments into the future are actually dealt with, because that has huge consequences on the future of our community. So my comment is well done on that particular section.
Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I'd like to concur with those comments, but I'd also like to make the comment that I was opposed to the rate smoothing in the previously, and because of that rate smoothing, we find ourselves in the position of having to dip into the reserve funding. In future, I think we bite the bullet in year one each time. We don't try and kick the can down the road. But to reduce from 11.4 whatever to 4.8, I think you've done extremely well. And I just hope the ratepayers are quite happy with that.
We won't predetermine the ratepayers' views. And we do have to acknowledge that there has been year on year very, very large increases. So this will still be difficult for some, but as I mentioned before, hopefully they will find it less difficult than what it otherwise may have been. I just want to very quickly, and thank you for your comments, and yes, I remember the debate and the conversation well when we were looking at rate smoothing. What my hope is for us delivering the long-term plan is that we are getting in there with enough time that we aren't just having to take a hit in year one. We have the time to be able to consider what that might look like without rate smoothing or other pieces. Allowing us to to approve the draft now allows our team to focus on the audit side. There is a level of certainty that, apart from comments from audit, that the work that is put in is acceptable to us and they can carry that forward. And it also then allows our teams to be focused on the long-term plan and how we can make sure that that's sustainable. But I certainly appreciate your comments, Councillor Johns. Thank you. Are there any other comments? I will make some comments at the end, but this is two parts. The attachments that we've had is the annual plan or annual budget. That's going to sink in eventually, I think. So many councils now call their annual plans annual budgets, and I think that they're a better description, in my personal view, a better description of what we're trying to achieve as it is a budget. Part of that, though, is our fees and charges. Were there any... Deputy Mayor Wards?
Sorry, Your Worship. I did have some questions around Section 7, the rates distribution calculations.
Please
Apologies, but... so through you, please, Sarah, I'm delighted to see, because I get quite excited about the distribution of rates across our community. So I'm delighted to see that we've managed to pull outliers in. But I'm also fairly, I wish to reinforce this is an average rate. We talk about the 4.8. And I know in the breakdown that you've provided in the detail in Section 7, I think it's worth having a discussion or asking some questions around how the rural have ended up as higher than the average, and what the messaging we will need to be doing to assure the rural ratepayers that there have been changes within that which need to be reflected to the rural ratepayers rather than the urban or the industrial. And so, for instance, last year we reflected on the urbans taking the slightly higher due to the number of water connections. So do we have some messaging to the rural ratepayers as to why they're going to be higher than the average that we've gone out with for our rates distribution this year?
Through your worship, that's a very heavy-handed question, Deputy Mayor. I think you will recall from the 26th annual plan, one of the levers that we have available to help us with the distribution is the percentage of the general rate that goes into the UAGC. So that would be the only lever that I can foresee right now that we would be able to change that could impact where this distribution is falling. However, wanting to highlight that the urban ratepayer over the last 3 years have been the ones that have bore the burden of our rates increases. So it's one of these wonderful tasks that we have where we have to try and balance the books, I guess, is a way to describe it. You're always going to have swings and roundabouts, and from what we've seen within our operational budgets this time round is we haven't had the significant increases in the three waters which has driven it. The messaging isn't that this time round at all. Can I come back on some further messaging? I'm not quite sure.
Before you do, I think some of the, and thank you for that explanation. I think really some of that messaging, and we do need to be clear and we do need to be transparent, and we have our communications lead within the room, and that should be a signal that we do need to make sure, particularly when we're speaking to our rural communities, that we are explaining that part. We also do have a rural portfolio group that's been working on communications and engagement when it comes to the long-term plan. So I might actually move some of that back through to the Deputy Mayor and other members of that committee to have some discussions on how best to communicate that message. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Watts.
Thank you, Your Worship. You've pretty much taken the words out of my mouth. Is that A, we need to reflect on what has historically happened, and you've summed that up beautifully, Sarah. And it is around that UAGC component that we all take a hit across the whole of the district for this. And as our Worship has indicated with the comms team lead in the room, the messaging around some of this stuff is going to be quite critical. So appreciate your thoughts on that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Tracy.
Yes, through you, Chair. I agree with everything that's been said. We will forefront the comms team and internal senior leadership with financial data breakdowns as well, so that the organisation has transparency to be able to build the comms effectively.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Any other comments? Councillor Naylor.
Just a comment on that is, and I might be way off track again, but I noticed that the urban had, the comment was the urban had increased because of the waters. If we take waters out of the equation, our next biggest cost is transportation, and we have far more rural roads than we do urban roads. So I don't know whether that has had some bearing on it or not.
It does, and we will be having some very big conversations in the long-term plan around that. However, and I'll make some closing comments once we've discussed fees and charges, that actually when we look at the increase in this annual budget, it really, the vast majority comes down to interest costs and depreciation. And those are things that, as much as we would like to be able to influence, we have very, very, very little influence. And they're very related, so they both go up at the same time usually. Any other comments before we discuss fees and charges? So fees and charges is a very, very quick comment from me. I'm sure there will be some discussion. Thank you to the team for the work on that. It is pleasing to see that I didn't pick up anything as a huge variance and change. It is mostly inflation. I do want to signal I sent, and happy to endorse this for the team to continue working on it. I have signalled to the group manager responsible for facilities that I am very, very keen to make sure that, particularly for some of our hall charges, that they are consistent. They aren't 100% consistent, or I at least need to understand the rationale for that. That will not have a material impact on the budget, though, so I just want to signal that I will be looking at that part. Were there any other questions or comments on the fees and charges? Councillor Corlett.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And like you said, with the fees and charges, I think we've had an increase to our community's buildings and stuff, and I think if we increase it again, it's going to be looked at. So I think there's something there where, like Scott was saying about this difference between the places, I think that was something that I brought up as well. So very much here.
Appears to be no other comments. Oh, very good. We have a number of recommendations here, noting that our endorsement allows audit to carry on with the work that they're doing. Sorry, I'll just hand over to Sarah.
Through your worship, the annual plan is not audited, but if you don't mind, I'll just take the opportunity to say our next steps following this meeting. Should our recommendations be successful, not predetermining an outcome, we will work with the comms to make these publicly available for our community within our website. Also really wanting to get the messaging out that our community's feedback is really important to us, but we're wanting to hone that into our long-term plan because that's the best place that they can provide feedback for us to make changes. From here, I have a couple of translations that I need to obtain for the published document. I also need to change it from an annual plan to an annual budget in case that messaging hasn't been received. And we plan to bring it back at the end of May for council adoption. Audit will complete a review of our rates resolution prior to that adoption. Just a little bit of extra reassurance we've implemented this time round.
Apologies, thank goodness we're not doing a full audit on it, but yeah, I knew that there was a audit step, which is why we're not able to adopt now. It needs to go through that process, so thank you for that. So, did you? Yeah, absolutely, go for it, Councillor Wallace.
Just through you, Mayor Scott, the electric car charging. Are we going to hit them for sitting the car there too?
There's no proposal so far in the fees and charges to add a parking charge. That would be a long-term plan discussion. So we can discuss that afterwards.
Yeah, because that's going to come down the road real quick.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. We have a number of recommendations, 1.1 through to 1.5. I would like to move those recommendations and then I'll make a final comment. I saw Councillor Johns put his hand up first. Apologies of move. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Johns. I just want to make a couple of quick closing comments before I put the vote as the mover. Again, thank you to the team for the work that has gone into this. This is significant. It's significant to be able to deliver on an LTP budget, but definitely with a a much lower financial impact through to our ratepayers. So I'm very, very, very grateful for that. This should be a signal to our community that we have heard them. We have heard them when they've said affordability should be a top priority for us. And they also, during the election, told us we just need to get on with it and make the changes that we need to make. So this should serve as a signal that we are doing that and we are getting on with the long-term plan to work on making this sustainable. Moving from an 11.84% projected in the long-term plan to a 4.83 is a strong result. I mentioned before that the vast majority of that 4.83 is made up out of interest and depreciation costs. And we have to acknowledge that we will be having a rates cap coming in at 4%, which means we are going to have some very, very big conversations with our community of what more we can do to get it to that level. The Deputy Mayor talked about the distribution between the sectors, and yes, there will always be some differences there. In my time on council, that's the tightest distribution I've seen, so I commend the team for that as well. Congratulations to the team. I also think that elected members should be very, very proud of the direction that they have set to allow this budget to come through in the way it has. So with that, I will put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Congratulations, team. We are now going to have a short break. So if we could be back in 10 minutes, please. Welcome back, everyone. We'll carry on with our agenda. So we now move to item 10.3, page 109, which is the adoption of our significance and engagement policy. So I'll welcome up Jess to the table.
Good morning, Mayor Scott and councillors. So, back again with the hopeful adoption of the significance and engagement policy. And I just wanted to note, because we did have an LTP workshop on the 18th of February where we discussed this policy and what it did and why we have it. But I just wanted to note that the direction that was provided at that workshop has led me to bring this today with no changes proposed for adoption. But you will note that in the recommendations, I have added a recommendation that the significance and engagement policy be reviewed in 2027 outside of the LTP process, just to ensure that we are still tracking compliant with our obligations under the legislation when it takes shape, and also that we can reassess our strategic assets based on the transition of those assets to the CCO for the water assets. I don't have too much else to say, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Jess, and thanks for bringing this back to us. This is, there was some discussion in our last item about significance and engagement, so it's really important that we're clear on this policy. As you mentioned, there aren't any changes from what we had before. If there are any minor changes in the recommendations, we will be authorising, assuming it's approved, the Chief Executive to make any minor edits. So on that note, are there any questions? Councillor Tawaka.
Kia ora, Mayor Scott and kia ora, Jess. Page 123. We briefly talk about Te Tiriti o Waitangi under engagement with Māori, iwi and Māori. But what actions are we taking as a council to ensure there is a shared understanding of on the values and principles of Te Tiriti? I do really appreciate the policy, and I think it's great, and the content of it is great, but I want to know how we are actually adopting the kōrero to ensure we are engaging properly and meaningfully with our communities.
Thank you, Councillor Tiwaka. That's a great question, and there are a number of different ways that we try to bring that through all of our work that we do here at Council. We do have some specific, obviously we have our memoranda of partnerships, which we, with our iwi, we have some specific legislative obligations as well to Māori, and we have a policy that we have adopted around iwi and Māori involvement and decision making at Council. In terms of our work, when we do our, I'm just going to step back a little bit, when we do our activity management plans, we do try and think about how we can implement our obligations as a treaty partner into the way that we do our work. So it is a kaupapa that we are trying to incorporate at a practical level as well as the policies that kind of guide our work. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Can I just supplement you to that? I did read the iwi and Māori participation in council decision-making policy, which I think is quite accessible and great. And again, I do like the kōrero in it, but I just would like to note, a part of it said council is committed to upholding the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. It would be good perhaps that we have a training so that we have a shared understanding and that we are strong in our response to that section in the policy.
No, that is a fair comment, and just to add an additional one, so I agree with that entirely, is a lot of the baseline from a policy perspective is driven by what's in the legislation, so the principles that are included within there. Moving past that would be our policy on how we're engaging, and then moving past that bit, which carries significant weight, is the MOPs with both iwi. So I think that is important. When it comes to this significance and engagement policy, though, this is making sure that we're meeting those legislative requirements as it's laid out in the Local Government Act and other acts. Corin.
Thank you, Councillor, through you, Chair. And I suppose the other point to just say in that is one of the things I'm interested in is our capability to actually then do that. So that's one of the things that I'll be looking at to make sure that we are equipped from an operational perspective to actually then carry out the policy.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Appears to be none. Are there any comments? No? Could I get someone to move Deputy Mayor Ward's, seconded by Councillor Johns? No further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Jess. We have already covered item 10.4, so we're just going to do a slight jump to page 139, item 10.5, which is delegations for Tararua District Council representatives on the Wairarapa Tararua Limited Stakeholders Forum. So hand back to Jess.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Yes, Peter, join me. We also have Catherine Meerman still here, I believe, yes. If we have any specific questions that we need her to jump in for. So I will take that report mostly as read, but obviously keen to hear any questions. The intention, just at a very high level, is to just to note the appointments that we have made, and then delegate the responsibilities and powers that have been pulled through from the shareholders agreement. So this is a very consistent approach with all four councils, and it's administrative, but the shareholders agreement specifically requires us to specifically delegate those powers and responsibilities from the agreement. I have also proposed an amendment to the delegations policy, so that it just essentially enables it. It gives us the internal action of this. So yeah, I would just say that that's not something to be worried about. That's just enabling the delegations to have effect. And then we've got just a couple of other smaller recommendations around just decisions that have been taken at the stakeholders forum to date. So just ratifying those, and just noting that decisions of the table in table 1 of that nature will be made by the representatives going forward on behalf of council. And then also to draw your attention to the table 2, which is the limitations on those specific powers. Then, yeah, and then table appendix 2 is the changes to the delegations policy. So happy to talk through any of those points.
Thank you very much, Jess, and I think this report is consistent with what we decided to do when myself and the Deputy Mayor as alternate were put on to the stakeholders forum, but this just ensures that we are fully compliant, particularly with the establishment of a new company, and making sure that we are really belts and braces, and it is documented and it is clear. But there should be nothing in here that should particularly surprise anyone based off our previous resolution. So with that, I'll open up for any questions anyone may have. Appears to be none, so glad that there wasn't anything that was of a huge surprise. Are there any comments that anyone would like to make? I'll just make one very quick one. A thank you to Jess, to Catherine, to Peter, just for making sure that we are absolutely, completely compliant with any decision making that we're doing. It is really important for us that this new company is a success, and we want to make sure that everything has been I's dotted, T's crossed. So on that basis, would anyone be happy to move? Councillor Corlett, seconded by Councillor Naylor. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jess and Peter. We now move to item 10.6 on page 153, which is the approval of the draft strategic framework for public feedback. So I welcome Carter to the table. Just a very quick opening comment from me on this. We have, this is a result of our strategic away days. We have had discussion and debate publicly in workshop around this, and this has also been sent out to elected members. But it is very, very, very important that we have a formal endorsement, and I am also very, very supportive of us sending this out for public feedback to make sure that we've got it right from their perspective. So I'll hand over to Carter.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. So I just want to start by saying how great it is to be at this point, is to have a draft strategic framework. What it means for us is that we have some direction that we can take, and we have some lenses we can look through when we are planning for the LTP and when we are pretty much doing our day-to-day job. So it's really great to be here. So you have really three options. You can adopt the draft strategic framework as it is, or you can make an amendment to it. You can adopt it on the basis for planning and decision making for the LTP, or you can approve the framework to go for public feedback, which is our recommended option, or you could approve the framework as a draft and include it as a consultation issue or consultation item. We've also in section 7.1 just added some pros and cons for each of these options. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carter. Is there any questions to start us off? Again, this will be fairly familiar to us all. Appears to be none. Are there any comments? Councillor Johns and then Deputy Mayor Wards.
Thanks, Chair. Scott. No, the whole thing looks good to me. 6.1.2, the recommended clause in the assessment options, in my view.
Thank you, Worship, for the opportunity. Well done. This takes a lot of work and a lot of thinking outside the square to pull together the diverse views and opinions of everyone around this table, plus, you know, officers and CE of the council. So well done, Carter. I did have to take a look at it twice to make sure that in one table you've captured it all. So well done. I will very much look forward to hearing back from our community if we've nailed this as well. So many thanks.
Councillor Tuaka.
Yeah, I agree. After all that corridor, I wasn't sure how you were going to get it looking like this, so it looks great and captures greatly what we've been discussing, especially as a new council, all of our different opinions are coming right off a campaign. This is great. Just one thing under the strategic priorities / pillars, underneath them you've got the related value, so whanaungatanga pono whanake. I think that most of them relate to all, and that you may not need to be too specific with the value that relates to it, because I think community will think that maybe, you know, the first one, affordability, relates to pono and that, and I think that it could be a cool opportunity for community to relate to these priorities in their own way, and not to be put them in their sort of square area, I guess. Yeah, just a suggestion.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. I think that's great, and I do see the values as an overarching values for everything we do. So I'm happy to take your direction.
No, I have some thoughts on that too. That's very good. But Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, if you just put another row in the table and put values, right across the bottom under there, it would do it for me.
Very good. Is there any other comments? And I'll make a couple. I certainly don't disagree with that. I hadn't considered that, Councillor Tuaka, but I think you're absolutely right, not trying to pigeonhole those values into specific areas. I'm not quite sure exactly where they will fit, but I'm certainly happy to amend the recommendation that we give direction to separating out the values, and perhaps within that you could be kind enough to approve me to just give final sign off, so we don't stop as long as we're following that methodology, which means that the team can get on with what they're needing to do. Just looking around just to see if there's some comfort with that. Councillor Johns.
Happy to move in that direction, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'll jump to that in a second, but no, certainly appreciate that. I did just want to make a couple of comments on this. This has taken a bit of work to do, but this is vitally important for us as a team to send a signal first to our community about what we're going to be focused on, to set very, very, very clear direction for staff and for officers on what we as elected members are wanting to achieve. If our community endorses this, and I certainly hope they do, this gives us a great foundation to be working on our long-term plan. So I just wanted to thank Carter absolutely for pulling this together, but very, very importantly, I wanted to thank all elected members for their contribution in developing this. And I certainly see the voices of us all within this document, which is not an easy thing to achieve. So I'm quite excited about that. Are there any further comments before I move the recommendations? Appears to be none. So 1.1 will remain the same. This is on page 153. 1.2, I'm just going to slightly change this to the council approves its draft strategic framework for the long-term plan 2027 to 2037 with a minor amendment of the values, or separating out the values, with delegation given to the Mayor for final approval for consultation. Remember, it'll still be going to consultation to be included in the early engagement process for the long-term plan. Would you mind just reading that back to me, please, Ellie?
Okay, the amended motion is that the Council approves its draft strategic framework for the long-term plan 2027-37 with a minor amendment to separate out the values with delegation given to the Mayor for final approval for consultation to be included in the early engagement process for the long-term plan.
Thank you. If we could just remove the consultation word because it's already covered in the engagement, and then that should be typed. So I've moved that. Could I get a second to Councillor Tuaka? Is there any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Now, in a similar vein, we move to page 159, item 10.7, which is the early engagement plan for the 2027 to 37 long-term plan. So I'd like to welcome up Karsten to the table, please.
Tēnā koutou katoa. We've been sitting here quite a few times over the last month. I'd just like, before we seek endorsement for this plan, which is tabled, I'd like to rewind a little bit. So going back to mid-February, we first came to you with our plan. An integral part of that plan was the investment game or the investment challenge which we showed you. And we received a lot of really good feedback on that. In addition, we also received a lot of good feedback on the engagement plan, which we tabled. So we went back to the drawing board and we've incorporated that, came back to you in the beginning of March with a tweaked plan. And again, we got feedback from you on that, which we've incorporated. And following that, we sat down with the various focus group members and we got a lot of good feedback from you, and these were really specific to the lens of your portfolio, right? So the plan that you see in front of you, it's trying to strike a balance between all the different perspectives that we've heard, and we also, apart from your perspectives on it, we've also got some really good feedback from you on stakeholders that we weren't aware of. We also got feedback from you on community comms channels, which we weren't quite aware of. So this was really useful, and I'd like to highlight here that we, the comms team, saw real value in tweaking this plan through the lenses of your respective portfolios. So many thanks for that. With that in mind, I would like to take this report as read, and I'm happy to take any feedback.
Thank you very much for that, Carsten and team. Some really impressive work there, and it certainly gives me some comfort, all of these different areas being considered in a methodical way, but through different lenses, and that has been some power in having the portfolio groups looking through it. I will go to questions in a moment. Just one thing I did want to note, sort of a question, but sort of a comment as well. When we're looking at the columns of who will reach them, as an example, or who is responsible in the different tables, I may look, and I just want to check your comfort levels, slightly amend the motion to give the Chief Executive delegation for any minor amends so we can carry this forward. But there are some of these items, as an example, on page 165, when we look at our iwi partners of who will reach them, it's making sure that the mayor and elected members are included within that. There's just some inconsistencies with where elected members are sitting and where we aren't. And there's a few bits in there on page 166. With youth, I see as mayor that I will have a role to play there as well, along with the focus groups. Apart from that, though, I'm comfortable with it. Is there any questions from anyone else at the table? Appears to be none. So we have a recommendation here. We'll go to comments after this. So 1.1 will stand. 1.2 is just adding at the end that minor amendments can be authorised by the Chief Executive. If someone is comfortable with that, could I get someone to move that motion? Councillor Naylor, seconded by Councillor Corlett. Is there any comments or further discussion? Deputy Mayor Wards.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's probably a point of clarification comment, Carsten. When we refer to elected members as to who is doing what, as Mayor Scott has referred to, that will include our community boards as elected members as well, because they certainly do have a role to play in terms of engaging with a number of these groups. So I'm just commenting that the wider view of elected members needs to be our lens, not... Okay, thank you.
And community committees.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Sharon. That's really important. Thanks.
And I think, I suppose, assuming that this motion's passed, is a signal or direction to the Chief Executive to make sure that community boards and community committees are clearly identified within those. I've helpfully made some notes, which I'm happy to share, Mr. Chief Executive. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Just a comment. All elected members are probably on all of this, one way or another. And it's refined to a different level. Because that's why we were elected. For the people, by the people. For the best result for the people. So, yeah, I think, if you think of it as an umbrella, then the dimple on the top's the mayor, and then there's the veranda. The shadow of the umbrella encompasses us all. I would like anyone in any street to walk up to me in any town in the Tararua District and ask me a question if I could help them. That's the way I see it.
I don't disagree with that at all. When it comes to consultation, though, it is really important that the comms team know who they need to be checking with or working with on specific areas. But we all play a role when it comes to consultation to be advocating for people, to be providing feedback and making sure that people understand what our plans are. So I certainly support your comments in that respect. Any other comments? Councillor Amboy.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, and thank you, comms team, for all the work that's been put into this. I commend you for it. I was heavily involved in those focus groups, and to see the conversations that we had within this report, it's very insightful. And just thank you for bringing us along that journey. I'm really looking forward to this pre-engagement stage and seeing what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Amboy. Any other comments? Just one quick one from me. You and your team should be very, very proud of yourselves. I really have no doubt in saying, from what we've seen so far, that we very, very, very likely will have the best consultation that we have had as a district. It is framing up and being shaped up to be that. And let me say, we talked a little bit about this in our annual budget discussion and our long-term plan comments that came out of that. We are going to need to be really, really good on this. That framework that you're already designing and bringing forward gives me great confidence that we're going to be able to meet that. So thank you to you, and please pass that on to your entire team, because I know that every member has played a different role to get this to where it is. So thank you, Carsten. With that, I'll take the vote. We have a mover and a seconder, so all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Carsten. Appreciate it. We now move to page 175, which is the notification of district-wide contestable fund round 2 25-26, item 10.8. Councillors' conflicts have already been declared within at the start of the meeting, but I just will ask councillors if there is any discussion on an item where they have a conflict, that we do not that those that have a conflict do not engage. Thank you. So I'll hand over to Sarah.
Thank you. I will take this report as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions you've got. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Is there any questions? Councillor Wallace, did you have one?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't declare. So Dannyvik RSA, Dannyvik Bowling Club.
Thank you very much.
I was in an aged moment. Thank you.
look, it's just important that they are declared, so they are now noted. I'm just doing a very, very quick run through to make sure I didn't miss any. And look, this will happen because when we made our declarations, this page wasn't open. It is much better before we start discussion to make sure any are declared. Deputy Mayor Wards.
Thank you, Worship. Can I please add another declaration, Ellie? I'm a member of the of the A&P Society, so.
Good. Are there any other last minute declarations? Councillor Johns. Thank you very much, and it does highlight a reason for a future report that may be coming to this council on how we manage the contestable fund, because as Councillor Wallace put it before, one of the reasons why we are here is we are all very, very involved in our communities, and it can make these discussions challenging. But you were asking questions. I just want to make a very quick comment. It is not easy to be on the panel for these decisions, and a number of us have been on the panels over the time. I would like to, this was the first time that I've been on the panel for the contestable fund. I couldn't get out of it because the motion said it was the mayor, so I had to take part. I do find it really challenging though, because there is only so much money that has been put aside, but I want to thank my fellow panellists for the significant research, reading, work, debate and discussion that went into that meeting. It was a really good experience to make sure that we were getting that flavour from all of the panellists. So I just wanted to pass on that thank you. Are there any questions from anyone else? Appears to be none. Could I get someone to please move recommendation 1.1 and 2? Councillor Petey Webber, seconder Councillor Amboy. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We did have comments, but I'll revert back for a comment for you, Councillor Wallace.
Sorry, Mayor Scott, I missed you. We're on question. So anyway, last year we had a third column which actually told us who actually had it the year before. So it kind of gave us a picture.
I'll hand over to Sarah in a second. As panellists, we had that information.
We haven't got it yet.
But I'll just hand over to Sarah.
Yep. Thank you. Yes, we did put that into the assessors panel discussions, but I'm more than happy to add that into another column for your information as well.
Just to note, and I know we've closed this item, I've made no secret of my desire to rethink how we are working the contestable fund. So my hope is, and again, I don't want to predetermine anything from colleagues, but this may look and be decided on very, very, very differently to what it is now. So I'm signalling that we should expect to see something coming back, hopefully in our next council meeting, to make a decision. Excellent. Thank you very much, team. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your work. We now move on to page 181, item 10.9, which is the triennial agreement 25 to 28. So I'll hand over to the Manager of Democracy Services.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I'll take the report as read, but I'll just highlight that the statutory adoption date is supposed to be 1st of March following the general election of members. However, that had been planned to happen, but it was interrupted by an emergency event, which meant that the Mayoral Forum couldn't discuss the matter as planned on the 16th of February. So the Mayoral Forum subsequently considered the draft triennial agreement on the 2nd of March and endorsed approving the agreement as it is with minor changes to update names and training dates. And all the signatory councils have been asked to sign this triennial agreement by the 1st of April. There is a review by the Mayoral Forum that's been set for May 2026, with final approval to be sought from all the signatory councils by June 2026. In the agreement, there are review provisions anyway, and these provisions require that if there are any changes proposed, that those get brought back to the signatory councils for adoption anyway. So happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much for that, Ali. I'm just going to make a really quick comment as well to build on the review part sitting on the Mayoral Forum. What you see in front of you is a relatively bland triennial agreement. And we all acknowledge that as a Mayoral Forum. It is relatively bland, as it was in the last triennium and the one before that. We absolutely acknowledge that we have an opportunity to use this agreement as a vehicle to be having bigger conversations about things like shared services and how we might work together. This doesn't stop that. But it was very, very challenging to write that in until we know what the government's direction is going to be. We did actually consider stepping outside of our statutory requirements and just not approving one on principle. But the decision was taken that we would adopt a bland one because, hey, that's fine. It allows us to work together. It makes sure that the Mayoral Forum can still operate. But we have had a commitment in May. Hopefully by then we know more. We can actually create a more meaningful triennial agreement. That will be coming back to Council for adoption when that happens. But in some ways I would consider this to be a placeholder. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have. Councillor Naylor.
I was just wondering what the status was of the Stratford, Taupo and Waitomo district is in here. I see that they're signatories on the agreement, but they're sort of supplementary members or something, and I wonder why those particular councils.
Happy to answer that. The triennial agreement is made up out of Horizon member councils that are full members of that. So if some councils cover more than one geographical area, then they will sit within another. We as a council, as an example, sit a very small amount within Wellington Regional Council, a very, very small amount, and a very, very small amount within the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. That doesn't give me a seat at the Mayoral Forum, and it doesn't give our council sort of voting rights within that. So it goes to where most of your council sits. So hopefully that answers your question. Great. Any other questions? Could I get a mover for the recommendations on page 181, please? Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Naylor. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? The motion is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. We now move to page 201, item 10.10. This is a nice big agenda, isn't it? Appointment of directors to council organisations and council-controlled organisations policy in the name of the Manager of Democracy Services.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. This report is seeking to update an old policy dating back to 2003 that this council had, which only covered the appointment of directors to council organisations. The policy at that time did not cover the appointment and remuneration of directors to council-controlled organisations, council-controlled trading organisations, or the remuneration of directors of council organisations. So it's a legal requirement that we have such a policy, especially if we're going to be appointing directors to a council-controlled organisation. So an updated policy is proposed for adoption. It's been developed to align with legislative requirements and best practice, and just noting that it's intended to legally establish the Wairarapa Tararua Water Company by 1st of July 2026, and that company will be deemed to be a council-controlled organisation.
Thank you, Ali. Is there any questions? Councillor Naylor.
Just section 9, removal of trustees. Should that be trustees or board members, or because it's not a trust, is it?
Happy to look at that.
Thank you for that, and the recommendation does give the Chief Executive the authority to make minor amends, so that's been noted. Thank you. Any other questions? Appears to be none. Could I get someone to move? Councillor Corlett, seconded by Councillor Johns. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to page 221, item 10.11, the complaints policy. So I'd welcome Dana up to the table, please.
Kia ora. Thanks for having me. So I'm delighted to bring this report to you. It has already been to the Community Connections Committee, where one minor adjustment has been made. So I'm happy to take it as read and answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you very much for that, Dana, and it should give councillors some comfort that don't sit on the Community Connections Committee, that committee has gone through that and had the opportunity to ask any questions or make any minor amendments. With that in mind, is there any questions on this policy? Deputy Mayor Wards.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm trying to reflect on whether or not we had this discussion at the Community Committee's meeting. I've been through it a couple of times and I'm not clear yet. Are elected members allowed to utilise this complaints policy? You refer in here that, you know, staff can make complaints about customers.
Yes.
Staff can make complaints
No, customers can make complaints about staff, but they elected members sit outside the policy.
Right.
No, and thank you for that clarification. And yeah, this is from an operational perspective.
Yes, correct.
Are there any other questions? Could I get someone to move 1.1 and 1.2 on page 221? Councillor Amboy, seconded by Councillor Petey Webber. Is there any final discussion or comments? Councillor Naylor.
I noticed in there that there was one section where it said complaints or commendations or something or other. So you talked about commendations. And I'm not proposing that we change it now, but in the future, I'm wondering whether we could change the complaints policy to a feedback policy and then try and encourage more positive. I think there's too much work being done now to change it now. But just as a directional thing, I'd love to see it being more feedback policy in which people can make complaints or they can make compliments. So I don't know, or whether we need a separate feedback policy, I don't know. But anyway, just a thought.
I think it's a fair thought. I just want to make a quick comment about that, though. Organisations really do need to have a complaints policy, because often that's what people will ring up and they'll want to say, I'm making a complaint. Because when something becomes a complaint, it is a little bit different. It becomes different from a like an ombudsman type perspective as well. And so I think that's almost a separate thing, and it's something that we could look at, or it could become a part of a future policy. But for our customer services team, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Dana, is the team needs to have very, very clear guidance on how they deal with a complaint and be able to share that guidance with people that are making a complaint so their expectations are managed. But if there's any further comments you'd like to make.
No, that's a really good summary, and generally councils across New Zealand have a complaints policy that has those allowances for additional feedback or compliments as well.
Any final comments? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, team. We now move to page 231, item 10.12, requests for information under the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 in the name of the Manager of Democracy Services.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I'll take this report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Tuaka.
Kia ora. I've just noticed in the table where it discusses the days in which it took to respond to some of these matters, how come some of them took around, there's a few on there with like 18 days?
There's a wide range of reasons. Some requests for information are very simple and easy to respond to, and some take 0 days because they can be answered quickly within the day. Some take a lot more time to get the information together to respond with, and a lot of the requests we have to consult with other officers to get information from them to be able to respond with. But we always aim to respond to people as quickly as we can.
Councillor Corlett.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Just one question. I sort of went into the website to look up some of the requests and looking at some detail. It's not in here, sorry, and I can't remember which one I'm relating to, but some of the website links to them don't actually have anything on the page when it goes to it. It's empty. I'll see if I can find that again later, but I just noticed there was a couple there when you go to the link on the request that it actually goes to nothing.
If you can, sorry, I got this one on. Yeah, if you can provide me with specific information about which ones, and I can follow it up. It could be just the asset it connects to in the website is
unintentional. Any other questions? Could I get someone to... Oh, sorry. Councillor Tuaka.
Are we allowed to ask about, like, for example, I see there's a request from Positively Woodville in regard to the intersection in Woodville. Am I allowed to ask if that's to do with the safety of it?
Apologies, that one came in while I was on leave, so I haven't actually read that request.
I might just be able to offer some assistance there, Ali. If there is no confidentiality requirements, and probably it's mentioned in the report, but it's a good reminder for councillors, this is all made publicly available. So what I always do when this report comes out is go, oh, that looks very interesting, and jump on the website and read the Lagoima. And one of the reasons it's not just because it's interesting is you will often, as a councillor or as an elected member, get asked similar questions multiple times, and they can be very, very well answered in a Lagoima. I keep that link, and if someone says, how does this work? I just send them the link to a Lagoima, and then they have that official information. So with that one in particular, it is about safety at that intersection, but all of the information on that Lagoima will be available online for you or anyone else to read. Yeah, Corin.
Through you, Chair. And part of the other reason that we make them available, one, for public transparency, but also if we do receive another Lagoima on the same topic, then the information is already there and we can then just direct the requester straight back to that. So it also saves us revisiting work that we've already done.
Very good. Did I get a mover and a seconder for that? No. Could I have someone move? Councillor Corlett, someone second, please. Councillor Naylor, any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you for your work on that, Ali. It's always a good report to receive. We now move to item 11, which is portfolio reports. We have one written portfolio in the name of the Deputy Mayor, and I'm aware that Councillor Wallace will be wanting to make a verbal brief report. So, Deputy Mayor Wards, are you wanting to go through your rural portfolio update, please?
Thank you, Worship. I'm happy to take it as read, just remembering that there are 3 contributions to this report, and I didn't submit one last month because I knew there was all these fantastic events coming up, so happy to take any questions. Just wish to point out to Councillor Johns the last sentence in my description around Akatio.
I see that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wards, and thank you for documenting the report. I certainly don't expect a portfolio report every month. It's when there's something to be talking about, but I definitely see value in having the written report there because it allows people to read and consider what has been discussed. Is there any questions for Deputy Mayor Wards or the other members of that portfolio group? Appears to be none. Could I get someone move the recommendation, please? So that's Councillor Johns and seconded by Councillor Wallace. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion carried. Councillor Wallace, would you like to give a verbal update?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Scott. Yeah, I'll give you. We had the very great pleasure on Saturday to attend a milestone. The first one I've ever been where there's a double 50-year badge. This is to do with the STAR, I should say, with the Norsewood Fire Brigade in our district. And Mayor Scott and I were honoured to be invited. And those 2 recipients were or his real name is Ian and Roger Montgomery. So those 2 guys, it was a very, very high end, as you can imagine, with Fire Brigade. All the dignitaries were there. Our MP was there, and it was well deserved. It was well deserved. These guys are so humble. They are so humble. They didn't want the pomp and pageantry, but no, that was a great night. Very, very humbling actually to realise what those guys were basically given. A century, 100 years between them both, and 50 years of their life dedicated to true. And they've been to hell and back with some of those, especially at Norsewood. They don't put out just fires, but they did have, at some stage, he did actually show their first load of equipment they get for pulling a car apart. It was basically a can opener on steroids. But yeah, so it was a great night. And I must say, our mayor spoke very, very well. Yeah, so that's all I got to report.
Appreciate that, Councillor Wallace. It was a great night, and I wanted to make sure that it was discussed in this meeting. I'll be providing that in my next mayoral update as well, but very, very grateful for your attendance as well, and I think we represented council very well, so thank you. Are there any other brief portfolio updates that councillors have? Okay, we'll move on. Oh, Councillor, sorry, did you put your hand up? No, perfect. We'll move on to the mayoral update, item 12, page 245, which is from me, so I'm happy to take that as read and ask if there's any questions. Appears to be none. I'm happy to move that, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wards. Is there any comments or discussion? Certainly is. Took a while to write it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. That concludes the public part of our council meeting. We do have a couple of items in public excluded. So what I could just ask is to have a councillor move us into public excluded. Councillor Corlett, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Is there any discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you very much, councillors. We are back in open session. Has been a really big agenda today, so thank you all for your participation. Thank you to staff for all the work that you have done as well. We'll be closing the meeting in a moment, but could I please ask Councillor Tuaka to close us with a karakia, please?
Kēnoi tātou, kia tātou katoa, te ata whai o tō tātou ariki a ihu karati, ko te aroha o te atua me te whiwhinga taitanga ki te wairua tapu, āke, āmeni.